evening. This is Linda Kaiser, and welcome to The Circle. My co-host is Morgan Rhodes, and our guest tonight is a repeat guest, Becky Best. And Becky is in the field of energy work. And Becky, I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about yourself. And also, what we're going to talk about tonight is geopathic stress. So give us a little bit more information about your work, Becky, and then let's talk about geopathic stress.
Okay. Well, hi. I'm so glad to be back. It's fun to come on the show. All right. Well, I am a energy healer, so I see clients and I move energy and move energy in and out of the body. So that's basically what I do. And I have people that come and see me for all kinds of things. And the geopathic zones is a topic that I do a lot of work with clients to clear their homes and businesses, places where people stay for long periods of time, especially beds and offices.
Okay, so, I want to just mention that geo means the earth.
Right.
Pathos means disease or suffering. So literally, it means suffering of the earth.
That's correct.
And it's a term to describe negative energies, right? Or what,
right.
Like earth rays? How would you describe that?
I see it more like, because I see energy as it moves, I can see these lines in the earth. And a lot of times they move along, but they're not always straight. And they intersect. Sometimes they'll curve. Sometimes they'll go at angles. Sometimes they go along and then they go up. So it's really interesting.
Football field. A picture of a football field. What might you see on a football field?
You might see. Well, I would imagine you would see lines intersecting.
Yeah.
And they're not always, like I say, they're not always straight and they're not always symmetrical. So it's really interesting because different things cause that, like electromagnetic fields cause running water underneath the surface will cause that. And in our sort of what we've created with our homes is when we bury the lines underneath the houses with these water lines, it can cause some geopathic zones to be set up. So really running water is one of the worst zones that you can have.
To sleep over or live over?
Yeah, to sleep and live over. If you're just in that area now and then, it doesn't seem to affect the physical body. It's over exposure to these zones. So they call them sick beds for a reason, because people, when you have a bed where you sleep 8 or 9 hours in the same place or work 8 hours, and if you're in a zone, especially one that crosses, it can be really damaging to the body. So I first realized about this when I went to Africa, and I was digging some wells over there. Not me physically digging, but having them dug, but really just being the person who goes into the village, finds the place. And I learned about the people who do the dowsing. And it was fascinating to me. I didn't have any idea about that before. And so when I got back from there, I was there 6.5 months. And when I got back, I started my practice again. And people started coming to me, and they started having all of these weird illnesses. Weird that the doctors couldn't diagnose them, or if the doctors would say it was one thing and give them medicine, and then they just could not get well. So sores that don't heal, welts or blisters, cancers, mental problems. There's just all kinds of things. But what was showing up in my practice was in the beginning was a lot of skin disruption, which was even welts that this woman had for 4 years. And it was a cycling thing. Every 6 days it would go. These welts would come up and these blisters would form, and then she'd have one day where they'd go down, and then 6 more days they'd come up. And she had that for 4 years.
So Becky, the surface of the earth is woven with a pattern of etheric threads, is what you're saying, that are identical to the earth as to the meridians would be to the body?
Yeah, that's my understanding. And when I tune in to that energetic, to look at that energetically, I see the lines. And when I actually do with the dowsing, I can feel, as I come up to a zone, I can actually feel it physically in my body.
So when
I
you
can,
see them, do you see them in color? Do you see them in 3 dimension? What does that look like for you?
it's more like black and white for me a lot of times. Colors not something that I see a lot of. So I just see the lines in darker color, darker shades of grays and blacks, and then lighter shades.
Overlaying the landscape, maybe?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to visualize what that looks like. I can't.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost kind of like shifting your it's almost like clicking a lens to a different sort of like a different frequency almost to see that. But now I do it so naturally I don't have to really shift. It happens just kind of on its own now. I guess just years of practice.
So how do you do it? Tell me your process. If Morgan were going to come to you and say, hey, I think I've got something wrong with me. You and Morgan, what would you ask her and what would you do?
Well, I would first find out what's happening with her. There's usually kind of an energetic tail there that tells me it's a geopathic zone. But if I have any question, then I always sense about that. So, you know, some of the, just to be clear about some of the things that happen, like you can have mental disturbances, your sleep can be off, any kind of serious illnesses. Those are all things that but what I find a lot of times with, at least with my clients, is they usually have skin disruptions and things that don't heal, like eczema or blisters or boils, because when the energy is wrong in their body, it's erupting out of their skin. And if they have those things, and usually they have them in conjunction with other things, then I usually know that that's what's happening. So then I would either, if the person's there, I would go to their house and walk the property myself and walk the house with my dowsing. And if not, I have them provide me with a map, just a simple drawing of the house. And from that, I can douse from a map just by touching the map and using my dowsing rod.
So how do you do that? Show us a dowsing rod.
Okay, so this is just a simple piece of wire that I made into a dowsing rod. Simple hanger, kind of like a hanger, right? And then you just hold it in your hand here, but you don't want to put the end of it, the curved part of it, too close to your knuckle, because you don't want to impede the movement. And then basically you're just asking life, the force of life or God or whatever you call it, you're just asking to show me a yes, and then you're waiting. So you say yes, 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 and then you wait for it to tell you which direction it is. And usually it takes a second in the beginning to get it going. So then it's going on its own. My hand is still, and a person may look at this and say, that's not real, she's doing something. But until you do it for yourself, you won't really believe it. So I say, yeah, try me out, because this is really cool. And then show me a no, and then no, 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 and then let it go. So it's going the opposite direction. Okay. So then what I do is first I ask, is there a geopathic zone on this property? Because if there's not, then you might as well not even do anything. So that would be my first question. Is there a zone? And I'm asking that for this place, and I know there is one because I took away my fix. So if my fix is gone, then I know there's a zone that's active on this property. And so that was a yes. And then I ask, and then I just start walking the property. So you just start at one end, and you just start walking, and you say, show me where the geopathic zone starts. And then you walk, 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 and then all of a sudden this thing will go over like this. See, it will just turn. And then and then you go, okay, and you mark that spot, and then you go to the other side of the property and you say, and you walk the opposite direction. You say, show me where the geopathic zone starts. And then when this thing goes to the side, then you mark that, and that's your zone. Sometimes that zone may be 12 inches. Sometimes that zone may be 3 feet. Zones are different. Zones can be 3 feet, and then all of a sudden they can be 3 inches. So then you just walk through your property going from side to side, finding where your zone is. And if you were doing that in person or on a map, it's basically the same thing. You're just starting on one side, working across, starting on the other side, working across. So then if it's a map, you just begin to mark your X's, and then when you're done, you just draw the zone on your map so you can see on your map of the house. And if there's an upstairs, you want to do that separately, because it can be on the second floor and not be on the first floor. It can be on the first floor and not be on the second floor.
Then what do you do about it?
Okay, so what's really cool is, probably everybody knows what an omega sign is, so I'll hold that up in front of my face so you can see. An omega sign is something they use that negates energy. So the other thing that you want to know when you're testing this is which direction, you have to ask, which direction is this zone coming from? So if you're standing facing south, then you say, show me where the zone is, where the energy's coming from. And then you just
I'm making notes.
Yeah, you just let this continue to move until you get the direction. So if it goes to the east, you move to the east. And then it say, show me where it is. And if it doesn't go anywhere else, then that zone's coming from the east. Sometimes it's coming from the southeast, whatever direction it is. And then that means that you would put the rounded part of this omega facing the southeast, so that the energy's coming in, going around the omega, and going back out. And it will absolutely clear the zone, because the energy no longer can flow. The other thing is you want to put this right in the center of the zone. So if the zone's 3 feet across, you put it 1.5 feet, because you want it right in the center. And then, if it's in a house, sometimes you have to be creative about, where you put this. Sometimes you have to put it on the outside. But, yeah, these things are, it's actually really easy to do. What questions do you have for me that'll clear that up, if you have any questions?
Go, Morgan.
Morgan, what do you think about that?
I just want to know, what causes them, or where they come from, or what different kinds of things.
Yeah,
Were they always there, or?
Yeah, they're natural lines in the earth that, for several reasons, like granite is one of the stones that if you have a zone over granite, it amplifies the zone. Right. So there's just different things. There's like noxious energies that come out of the earth. You don't want to be over that. So when you're testing for this, you can say, show me the geopathic zone, noxious energy, or any energies that are harmful to human beings. The other thing, these lines are natural. It's just that we're not supposed to be living over them.
Right, and we used to have systems back where we wouldn't build on zones like this, and now modern civilization.
And now with these omegas, you can clear a zone and live there peacefully and happily. There's lots of information on the internet that you can find about studies they've done with cancer patients, showing where the lines are and all the people that died living on those lines. And especially when lines intersect, that's really hazardous. So the other thing that I've noticed too is animals sleep on zones.
So cats.
They sleep on them. So, I always heard you never want to sit where a cat sleeps, because
Oh my
that's not
God.
a good place,
My cat
right?
sleeps right next to me. Is that bad?
Well, it could be. It just depends. Now, like, dogs will go up and curl up in a certain spot, and you'll want to test where they sleep. Sometimes they sleep there because it's a sunny spot, but sometimes they sleep there because they're protecting the humans. They know there's something going on, and they are blocking the energy. So the energy's actually hitting them first before they hit the humans. And a lot of animals are getting cancers and stuff because these lines are, they're the ones that are taking the brunt of it. So I would check any place your animals sleep. I would check for zones there.
So get my dowsing rods.
Yeah, get your dowsing rod and check it out.
Ask to show me the geopathic dome.
Zones.
Zones.
Yeah.
Ask if
it's also for noxious energy or any energies that are harmful to humans.
Okay.
Okay. And then once you ask that question, then that your intention is set. Then you can just say, show me the zone, show me the zone, show me the zone. Show me where the zone starts, show me where the zone ends. Yeah. So, and if you've got something, if somebody has something weird that's nobody can explain, you just don't understand, it can't be diagnosed, even people that have like a feeling like sometimes their motor functions in their body isn't working correctly, that's a sign of a zone. Those kinds of
babies that cry all the time, would that be an indication of?
It could, yeah. Kids who throw tantrums, who have, a lot of crying spells, moodiness, depression, all of those things are some of the first signs before the illness actually takes up in your body. And so I was telling you about the woman that had the one of my clients who had the welts for 4 years, and these welts would come up, and it was steady, up 6 days, and then she'd relax, and it would go away for 1 day, would come back the next day for 6 more days. She did this for 4 years. After I cleared the zone, it took 2 days, and she was completely free, and now she's been almost clean almost a year since I cleared her. And it was a zone right underneath her bed. So all we did was put in one of these, and within 2 days, the welts went away and never came back. So I've had a lot of those. And out of all the people that about 90% of all the people that I've tested their homes, about 90% have a zone.
Well, is that because of the currents and the computers and the televisions and the light bulbs?
Part of it, yeah. Part of it.
How much is attributable to that?
Well, I think EMFs make the zones more harmful. So not all the zones that I find are in the bed or in the office. But I don't really worry too much about those zones. I clear any zone I find just to make sure that it isn't an issue, because you don't want your animals having problems with the zone just because you don't. And also places where trees don't grow, bushes have holes in them, those are usually zones. Trees that have weird bumps and curves and twists are usually because of a zone. So you can look around your yard, and if you have a big empty space where grass doesn't grow, bushes don't grow, trees don't grow, that's probably a zone. And it's kind of like dead energy in there. You wouldn't want to put a table and chair and go sit out there in that spot. So when you're clearing these zones and putting down your little omega, you'll want to put that at clear that zone at the edge of your property. What happens beyond there, if you've got a neighbor, you might want to tell them, if you think they're open to something like that you think the zone is going into their property. But this is not something that we've ever been taught in this country.
No.
I've never heard of it before. I think it's I'm not sure if they want us to get sick. I'm not sure why they're not letting this information become public, but it's definitely real. And in my practice, a lot of people are resting a lot easier now that those zones are cleared up, and they're sleeping better, they feel better. And, even the people that had cancer and now they're better, and now we have a pretty good likely chance that they're not going to return to that because those zones are cleared. So
how long do you leave that little omega symbol in place?
Forever.
So what if there's a zone in the middle of your house on your carpet, you put an omega symbol in the middle and you leave it there?
Well, that's why I say you have to. I've never had one that ended up that started in the middle, of the room.
Okay.
But usually it's because these lines on the earth are long, it's usually starting 2 miles down the road and coming up and just coming through your property. So you basically just start at the beginning of your property, find the line at the beginning and do it there. It will eliminate the zone through the whole house.
Okay.
So in my personal house, I had 2 zones that were really wide, like 5 to 6 feet wide, coming through my whole house and then intersecting right where I do my healing sessions.
Oh, wow.
So 2 big zones coming, and that was where I was spending most of my time. And then sleeping in a zone. But a lot of this has to do with the person's health, their vibration, and their general overall health, because I didn't really feel like I was sleeping in a zone. But other people are more sensitive, and they could start having problems right away. So I really only slept in the zone for about a year before I found out about it. But,
so this is commonplace where you were visiting in Africa.
In Africa. Well, that was more like, the dowsing rod was being used to find the water under the earth.
Right.
But of course, they know there not to build their huts and stuff right on top of that running water.
Got it.
So the dowser goes through, and he'll find, and then you'll see the way that they put their huts will be because there's no running water right there. There's no, the water's not running right there. So people who live right next to rivers or creeks, that's not a really great place to live, because there's that water underneath probably spreads out, and you'd really want to be careful. And even if you did, you'd want to get your omega set up. So, if I can give my email address if somebody has questions and wants to call me and ask me about this.
Yeah, why don't you do your email, and then Morgan is going to say a couple words.
Okay.
I was just going to thank you for coming on for a second time. Thank you, Becky, so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, it's fun to talk about. I think it's really important that people know about this, and there's plenty of information on the internet to look up. I haven't seen a lot of stuff about how to move the energy out. I see lots to tell you how to do it or what it is about, but I can tell you this omega works great.
Cool.
So.
And this is part of a lot of other cultures. I mean, the Chinese feng shui, ancient Russia, the Romans, even some of their architects did it. So, I mean, it's just been kind of pushed out of our culture, but not really for good reason.
You bet. Well, let me give you my email address, and then if anybody wants more information or just needs help, questions, whatever, give me a call. Give me a shout.
I'll put it in the chat and the description underneath if you want, or you can say it right here. No, go ahead.
I am Becky Best at gmail.com.
Cool. Have a good night, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky.